Good afternoon, everyone. If you hadn't heard the news, the United States just lost a majority of its wheat crop due to cold ice, snow, heavy wind, and out of season blizzards. This goes right into that precarious position where we are entering the mini ice age. These smaller producers adding enough to where a major producer like the United States and Ukraine going to be going down this year in production levels. Can we keep up? We're right at that teeter-totter edge. The FAO continues to tell us that we are going to go into record after record. That would be the case if we were going to continue on the status quo with our weather patterns. Now everything's in flux. I truly believe this is the first major loss of the new mini ice age. From this point forward, my time forecast for crop losses stands. 2019. Let's take a look at a full rundown here. Areas of losses across the planet that the media is not talking about. Some areas are gaining, of course. Other areas are losing, but is it in balance? Let's take a look at China, the Ukraine, the EU with its last weeks, plural. Absolutely what happened to the United States equivalent, just wiping out of crops left, right, and center. Take a look down in South America. How about Australia? And where's the balance in there? Hope I can bring you the best detailed analysis. You need to get ready. This is it. It's started and it's going to intensify from this point forward. What we considered stable growing zones, normal planting and harvesting times, that's all gone. The sun is repeating its 400-year cycle. And while you're watching the video, please remember to subscribe to Adapt 2030.
Wheat soaring the most on record after a freak snowstorm blankets the Midwest. This is exactly what happens in a mini ice age. Our seasons go out of flux. Blizzards come in spring, and spring comes during the winter. Look for some unusually cold periods during this summer, as well as some unusually warm periods during this fall. What ended up happening is wheat prices globally spiked 8% in 2 days. A look at the winter whiteout across the wheat fields in America. Western Kansas almost completely covered by snow. Nice map here of the effects of the snowfall from April 29th through May 1st. On the Kansas wheat, anywhere in dark blue, 100% loss. Anywhere in light blue, could be replanted. They don't know if it's bent over or not. They're looking at substantial production losses because the wheat during the early spring grew 17% taller than the average in the last 5 years. So it was taller, so the wind had a greater effect, knocking it over. When these plants get crushed and bent in different angles, the nutrients cannot go to the head. It is done. Stem bending is what they call it. Let's take a look at the whiteout here. Once the stems are bent, that wheat crop is lost. Driving prices the most ever seen in our current lifetime. On the wheat futures, 5.5% the first day, 2.5% the second day, and as the totals come in, we're going to see more and more rises. Anybody on a short, absolutely wiped out. You should be contacting your fund managers to see if they were shorting ag products on this. This is absolutely going to decimate their portfolios if they had been. Ryan Maui has a really good rundown here on the maps of temperature as well as snowfall. You can see that front pulling right through all the wheat growing and corn growing areas of the Midwest and Western United States, Central Plains states. Temperature gradient here so you can see blue and white mean extreme cold. I mean, when you have plants basking in 70 Fahrenheit and then suddenly it's dropped, and then suddenly the temperature drops 50 or 60 degrees Fahrenheit, those plants don't like it any more than you do as a human being. Ultra low on here, it was almost a cyclonic rotation across the central part of the continent. Temperatures 14, 15 Celsius. This is a Celsius chart here. Celsius below normal temperatures. So the Fahrenheit and Celsius conversion, a little bit different. Anywhere you see that whitish color, that is a wisp of cold death to plants that came ripping across our main growing belts. AgriMoney, good one to check on updates. They have hourly updates coming through. And also in addition to this, massive flooding going to be occurring through Oklahoma and Illinois. So if they're going to try to get any kind of replanting in for corn as well, this goes for the Corn Belt and wheat both, it's not going to happen. They're looking for floods. So this is a global tsunami, literally, of record-traded contracts, forward contracts on wheat delivery. Never seen before, recorded volumes. Now this says something in itself. If it's supposed to be such a plethora and such a global glut of wheat, how can a single loss in the United States drive the global price 8%? That is something else going on behind the scenes. So I started to dig in and take a look at other countries as well. But first, let's look how much Kansas City received in snowfall. In the spring, early spring, the mainstream media claiming how many farmers were lulled into planting early based on mainstream media pushing of the global warming agenda, saying spring's here, spring's here, spring's here. There's no possible effects from a mini ice age coming up. Couldn't be done. Not even possible. Don't even question it. Spring's here. It's early because of global warming. I've been saying the whole time, look for this kind of thing to happen, and here it is. This is the shot across. It's not even a shot across the bow. It's here now. It is in play. And this is a direct effect of a repeat of something we would have seen during the modern minimum in Europe when they had their crops wiped out. Modern day. Welcome to 400 years of history repeating itself. You're living in the 1600s again in the weather patterns wiping out crops. Texas Panhandle. This is what the fields look like. And the hard red winter wheat, which is mainly used for breads, cakes, that sort of thing, is very different from the durum, which is used to make pastas. Either way, they're both up. Look at the field conditions. You can do your own Google searching. I left a lot of different kind of keyword searches that you can do here. Wheat futures surging after U.S. slammed with a late season blizzard. I mean, literally one of the latest blizzards ever recorded in the United States going back 150 years. More rain to pummel the U.S. after crop damage, which is going to delay replanting. So what I mean already, the rains haven't started yet, but this is what the field conditions look like in the corn growing areas. Also the wheat growing areas, same. How are they going to replant in that when there's more rain forecast, a deluge of rain forecast to come following this cold front? How long is it going to take for this to melt off? How much damage is under there that's not even accounted yet? The damage that drove the prices is what you see physically with your eyes. Visible signs of damage. It's not even gotten down to the point yet where the Canadian production's taken into consideration. They had frost damage all over. Frozen, and I don't mean frosted like frosted snowflakes. I mean frosted wheat plants that are our main grain staple for the Western world. And what do you think is going to happen? These leaf rust is already infecting susceptible crops, meaning crops that are weakened. Now, how do you think this cold damage is going to weaken those crops further? That is going to let the leaf rust just run wild across what remains. So regardless of what got damaged in the cold, it stressed the plant so much that now this leaf rust is going to take hold after the plants come back. There's going to be more losses from leaf rust as well. Let's take a look over into China. This is one of the areas I had forecast anyway, just from a repeating 400-year cycle. What happened back in the Ming Dynasty? What happened in the Yuan Dynasty in China? They lost wheat production across the northern parallels from 45 north and above. And currently in China they're pretty much pegged at 100 million tons. The farmers have no incentive to grow any more wheat. They're actually lowering production because all they're using it for is animal feed. The Chinese government sets a static rate at $9.50 a bushel, well above the world rate at around $4.50, higher now. But what happens when the world rate actually surpasses $9.50 and the Chinese wheat's then going to be exported and the animal feed's not going to be available in China? Emperors fell because they couldn't feed their people. Now China's getting right into the same problem again, because there's going to be this real push and pull for the free market when they try to sell their wheat and hey, the Americans are buying it for $12, but Chinese government, you're giving $9.50. They're going to want to export. They're not going to want to sell it for animal feed if they're going to fetch a higher price anywhere on the global market. This is going to create an internal strife with the farmers versus the government straight away. Less than 6 months. Look for social unrest in China based on the price of wheat. Jumping over a nice Reuters article earlier in the year that I also featured in one of my videos. EU wheat crop forecast due cut to winter cold, and that was like months ago before they've had these several lightning strike cold fronts in a row that have already damaged what came up a little bit early. Czech Republic, Slovakia, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Poland, and Romania all forecast for decreased wheat production. And then with Ukraine, that is the breadbasket. Absolutely, in Europe, 35% decline. And this is where we get into that push and pull. Who's overproducing? Who's underproducing? We are on such a razor's edge of production versus losses. And now the French crop's down. Last year they couldn't even sell it because it was so low protein content. And that's another thing they're not talking about at all. The protein content of the wheat that will come from these degraded stalks, these degraded heads. The French couldn't even bid into Egypt last year. The Egyptian buyers didn't even want French wheat. So even if you can grow it, doesn't mean it's even going to be for sale and anybody's going to want it. It's going to be relegated down to animal food. And then if you hadn't noticed, all the vegetable losses across Europe, all these incredible high wind, high hail, high snow, high ice events that decimated the winter vegetable production across Europe earlier this year. Spain, Portugal, Italy, almost everywhere. Olives were damaged, all the fruits, all the vegetables. Led to shortages in the UK supermarkets. This is just another instance on top of what just happened in the United States. Now we got two massive losses of agricultural production, one in Europe, one in the United States. And it continues. This sudden snow and cold after that abated in the beginning of the year. Everything bloomed early just like it did in the United States, and then bam, it got cold again. So now there's fruits, apples, pears, plums. There's record prices for blueberries in the United States. The cherries, all the fruit orchards in the United States, East Coast, they got slammed with those blizzards after the buds had come out, flowers starting to emerge, and then flash freezing again. So we're seeing this globally in the Northern Hemisphere. And then May 1st, look how much snow is still coming down in France. That is over half a foot easily. And then we jump over to Northern Italy, May 1st as well, getting heavier snows. Look at the depth. And that snowstorm is only a third of the way passing through. This is going to continue for the next day and a half over these same areas. So we have to ask, well, is there any other place on the planet that can substitute supply? Well, we take a look at Australia. Looks like there's going to be production increases this year. Okay, 35 million tons, but how much was lost in the United States? Is that just going to be an offset compared to the U.S.? What about the Ukraine? What happens up in China? Oh, let's jump down into South America and see what's happening down there. 3 inches of rain right on top of the crops when they're ready to be harvested. Weather alert for major producing regions of Argentina. At least 11 million acres of crops at risk, damaged already through some reports. Incredible flash flooding, 9 inches of rain, and they're getting ready to harvest in the fields. I'm not a mechanized farmer that has a mega farm. But 9 inches of rain, in my own personal opinion, coming down on wheat that is already ready to be harvested, at the very minimum, is going to need to be dried. Moldy wheat, that's animal feed. That's not human consumption. Now here's an interesting fact. Brazil's importing 6.6 million tons from Argentina this year. And even though Argentinian wheat is forecast to come in 1 or 2% above last year, Brazilian wheat's forecast to drop 4%. Now here's the most interesting thing at the very bottom that I highlighted in blue. The Brazilians are importing U.S. wheat more cheaply than they can produce it themselves in country. $23.50 a ton cheaper than Brazilian wheat. That 8% rise just wiped that completely out. So where does this leave Brazil? And I'm going to bring us over to Ag Players. This is a great, go up to Twitter, check out Ag Players. They have the most up-to-the-date, minute-by-minute, people feeding in on what's happening with agriculture across the planet. As I was putting the video together here, I grabbed a couple tweets coming off there. Paris wheat futures open 2% higher because that snow that's falling across France is also damaging the wheat for a second year in a row. Matthew Morong, at least talking 150 million bushels at the very minimum loss of U.S. wheat. Kansas wheat, minimum 3 million acres, winter wheat affected by this blizzard. And that bottom tweet, Morocco raises soft wheat import custom duty to 135%. From 30%. That's literally more than doubling it overnight until December 31st. Now, if countries start doing this, raising tariffs or not allowing imports or exports, depending on who's producing and who's buying, this is going to affect the prices as well. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. I presented this information to you. It is up to you as an individual to understand, do your own research, find out what's going on, make your own choices. You are allowed to, you are required to make your own choice. I encourage you to do more research. There is so much going on with the grand solar minimum. I firmly believe, looking back in history, May 2nd, 2017 will be marked as the day our first mini ice age global crop losses on the grains have been recorded. Food prices from now will never get cheaper. Food prices are going to start skyrocketing from right now. I do believe by the end of 2018, these losses are going to mount even more. You are going to be spending an enormous amount of your paycheck to buy food. What happened in 2008 and 9 with the oil prices, it had enormous effects on the society. Everything pegged, spiked, delivery costs, production costs, everything moved around oil at that time and commodities. But this time, it's different. Everybody eats every day. You don't eat, you die. You don't drive a car, you don't die. You can walk or take a bike or take a bus or the MRT or whatever train. You don't eat, you die. This has affected every society since the beginning of our civilization as a species 50,000 years ago. Chinese dynasties collapse when they can't feed their people. Emperors, kingdoms collapse because they cannot feed their people. And here we are at the very cusp again of global food shortages. This is it. Watch it from this point forward. I wish you all the very best in your preparations. The media is going to try to bury this as deep as they can because they need to keep you distracted. Hungry people, angry people from food price rises because their governments can't control food costs. You're going to watch the society change around you. This is the beginning of the end of our modern era. These food prices are what is going to change our society. We're going to have to move into indoor vertical farming. We are going to have to move and change the way we produce our foods. This is one of the greatest opportunities in human history. Find the opportunity and the danger, as the Chinese proverb says. There is so much opportunity right now if you can see what the future holds for us. I'm trying to present it to you through these last 2.5 years of my videos to show you what the future is holding. I've been trying to show you the signs, the repeating patterns. All I'm doing is looking through a history book and reading what the accounts were of either the 1200s, the 800s, and the Chinese writings, or back over right into Europe, what they wrote down in English of all things in the 1600s. Other scholars studying what has happened through these several different ice ages all the way back to 1100 AD need to look back at history. That's it. History is our future. The danger is your opportunity. Where is your opportunity? How are you going to thrive and prosper during this time? Because it is here. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. It is here. Time's up. This is your warning sign. If you don't get it and you want to put your head in the sand, that is your choice as a sentient being. I encourage you to take all of your own power. Make your own choices for yourself. Be responsible for your choices. And choose what's right for you. What feels right for you. What is right for you. That is right for you because you chose it. That's yours. That's your choice. But for the rest of you who see this, what's happening right now, I implore you, you need to get ready right now. There is no time left. This next year and a half is going to pass by so quickly, and these events are going to accelerate as we go through. This is it. It's here. History is repeating, and you are going to need to adapt to the ever-evolving conditions. And I wish you the best of luck. I truly do. I hope everybody prospers during this time.